At 73 years old, I finally stopped waiting for someone to knock on my door. The phone calls that once filled my days had dwindled to almost nothing. The grandchildren I raised were too busy with their own lives to visit. The neighbors I'd known for decades barely made eye contact anymore. And one day, sitting in my favorite armchair with the afternoon light streaming through dusty windows, I came face to face with a truth that shook me to my core. Absolutely no one was coming to save me from the invisible prison that old age had become. But in that moment of crushing realization, something unexpected happened. The silence that I'd been fighting against suddenly felt different. Instead of emptiness, it became a canvas. The stillness I'd been trying to fill with noise became a teacher, and in that sacred, quiet space, I began to hear a voice I hadn't listened to in decades, my own. Not the voice of the young mother who sacrificed everything for her children. Not the devoted wife who measured her worth by how well she served others. Not the busy professional who ran from meeting to meeting, always putting everyone else's needs first. This was the voice of the soul I had completely forgotten existed while spending 70 years taking care of everyone but myself. What I'm about to share with you aren't just 5 simple habits that reorganized my daily routine. These practices literally saved me from disappearing into the background of my own life. They pulled me back from the edge of irrelevance and reminded me that being 73 doesn't mean being invisible, forgotten, or useless. If you've ever felt like the world has moved on without you, if you've wondered whether your best days are truly behind you, if you've struggled with the loneliness that seems to be the unwelcome companion of aging in our modern world, then this message was written specifically for you. The transformation I'm talking about didn't happen overnight, and it didn't require expensive treatments, complicated programs, or anyone else's help. It began with something so simple that you might dismiss it as trivial. But I'm begging you not to make that mistake. Sometimes the most profound changes in our lives start with the gentlest shifts in how we treat ourselves when no one else is watching. The first habit that began my resurrection was treating my bed like a sacred altar instead of just another chore to rush through. Every single morning, as I smoothed the comforter with deliberate, loving hands and arranged my pillows with the same care I once gave to my children's rooms, I'm performing a ritual that speaks directly to my wounded spirit. My movements are slow, intentional, almost ceremonial. I run my palms across the fabric like I'm blessing the place where my tired body finds rest each night. This isn't about having perfect hospital corners or magazine-worthy bedding. This is about sending a message to my soul that I had forgotten how to speak. You still deserve beauty. You still deserve care. You still deserve tenderness, even if, especially if, it has to come from your own loving hands. There's something profoundly healing about creating order and beauty in this one small corner of your world when everything else feels chaotic and uncertain. When I step back and look at my perfectly made bed, I see evidence that I still matter enough to create something beautiful, even if no one else will ever see it. It's my daily declaration that I refuse to give up on myself, that I still believe my life is worth the effort it takes to make it lovely. The second practice that brought me back from the edge of despair was transforming my morning tea from a rushed afterthought into a sacred ceremony worthy of meditation masters. No more grabbing a quick cup while scrolling through depressing news or worrying about things I can't control. Now I fill my kettle with the kind of mindful attention I once reserved for my most precious possessions. I listen to the water as it begins its gentle transformation from cold silence to singing steam. I choose my cup with intention, the delicate bone china one with the tiny roses that reminds me of my grandmother's garden, the woman who taught me that small rituals could hold enormous meaning. When my tea is ready, I sit down in my favorite chair by the window, really sit down with no distractions, no television, no phone, no mental lists of things I should be doing instead. I hold that warm cup between my hands like it's a prayer bowl, feeling the heat seep into my arthritic fingers. Each sip becomes a meditation, a reminder that life isn't over. It's just become quieter, more deliberate, infinitely more sacred than it was when I was rushing through my younger years without ever really tasting anything. In a world that worships speed and productivity, this slow morning ritual became my rebellion against the lie that my time is somehow less valuable now that I'm old. Every leisurely sip is me saying no to a culture that wants to discard me, yes to honoring the preciousness of this moment, this breath, this beating heart that has carried me through 7 decades of joy and sorrow. The third habit sounds almost too simple to matter, but it completely revolutionized my relationship with each new day. Stepping into the morning light for exactly 2 minutes of pure presence. I open my front door or walk to my favorite window, and I let the sun touch my face like a blessing I've been waiting my whole life to receive. I breathe in the air that's been patiently waiting all night to fill my lungs with possibility. I feel the warmth on my skin and remember that I am still part of this magnificent, turning world. This tiny practice doesn't magically fix the loneliness that sometimes sits on my chest like a stone. It doesn't bring back my husband who's been gone for 5 years, or make my children call more often, or restore my fading eyesight. But it does something equally important. It reminds me that the earth is still here, still spinning, still offering its gifts freely to anyone willing to receive them. And more importantly, it reminds me that I'm still here too, still worthy of the sun's attention, still deserving of warmth and light, still very much a part of this beautiful, complicated dance of being alive. Those 2 minutes in the morning light became my daily proof that I haven't been forgotten by the universe, even when it feels like I've been forgotten by everyone else. They remind me that I still have a place in this world, that my presence still matters, that the simple act of showing up each day is itself a form of courage worth celebrating. The fourth practice completely changed how I speak to myself in the mirror and in those quiet moments when doubt and despair try to convince me that my best days are ancient history. Every morning I look directly into my own eyes and say these 5 words out loud, letting my own voice be the first kind words I hear each day. You are still becoming beautiful. For the longest time, I believed the devastating myth that aging is nothing more than a slow, irreversible fade into irrelevance. I thought getting older meant becoming less attractive, less valuable, less interesting, less worthy of love and attention. But somewhere in my 73rd year, I discovered something revolutionary that changed everything. This season of life isn't about becoming less of who I was. It's about finally becoming more of who I was always meant to be, stripped of pretense and performance, refined by experience, and softened by hard-earned wisdom. Every morning when I speak these words to my reflection, I'm choosing to reject the story that society wants to write about women my age. I'm refusing to believe that my best chapters are behind me. I'm declaring that wisdom is still growing in me, like flowers in late summer, that beauty is still revealing itself through the lines on my face and the silver in my hair, that purpose is still unfolding around me in ways I never could have imagined when I was young and thought I had everything figured out. The fifth habit transformed my living space from a place where I merely existed into a sanctuary that feeds my spirit every single day, creating and maintaining a small corner of intentional beauty in my home. As dusk approaches each evening, I light a single candle and place it on my clean kitchen table next to whatever flower I've chosen for that day. Sometimes it's a perfect rose from the grocery store. Sometimes it's a dandelion I plucked from my front yard because its stubborn cheerfulness reminded me of my own resilience. This tiny altar of beauty cost me almost nothing in money, but it gives me everything I thought I had lost. It reminds my weary heart every evening that life is still worth celebrating, still worth honoring, still worth loving with fierce tenderness. When I see that flickering candlelight dancing across the petals of my chosen flower, I remember that I am the curator of my own joy, the architect of my own peace, the guardian of my own sense of wonder. You might be wondering whether these seemingly small rituals really changed anything significant in my life, or whether I'm just fooling myself with pretty ceremonies that mask the harsh reality of aging alone in today's world. Let me tell you exactly what happened as these 5 habits became woven into the fabric of my days like golden threads in a tapestry I'm still creating. The loneliness didn't disappear completely. Some evenings it still visits me like an old acquaintance I'd rather not see. The phone still doesn't ring as often as it did when I was younger, and busier, and seemingly more important to other people's lives. Young people at the grocery store still look right through me as if I'm invisible, and doctors still talk to me like I'm a collection of symptoms rather than a whole person with dreams and fears and a lifetime of stories worth telling. But something fundamental shifted deep in my core, something that changed not just how I move through my days, but how I understand my place in this world. I stopped waiting for external validation to prove my worth and started creating that validation myself, one gentle ritual at a time. I stopped measuring my value by how needed I felt by others and started discovering my inherent value as a human being who has survived and thrived through 7 decades of everything life could throw at me. I used to think that being strong meant holding everything inside, never showing weakness, always having the answers. But I've learned that real strength at 73 looks completely different. Real strength now is showing up for yourself every single day, even when no one else does. It's choosing to honor your life even when society suggests your most valuable contributions were decades ago. It's finding ways to bloom in the quiet seasons when the world isn't watching. These 5 habits didn't erase my grief over friends who've passed away, or fix the reality that my children live busy lives in distant cities. They didn't restore my youth or undo the physical changes that come with 73 years on this earth. The aching joints, fading eyesight, moving more slowly, forgetting words that used to come easily. But they did something more important. They made me whole again, not the old version of me, but a quieter, clearer, more authentic version. One that smiles not because life became easier, but because I chose to honor it anyway. One that finds joy not in loud celebrations, but in the gentle satisfactions of a life lived with intention. I wake up now feeling like I have something meaningful to offer each new day, even if that something is just my presence, my gratitude, my willingness to bear witness to beauty wherever I find it. When I catch my reflection in the mirror, I don't see someone the world has forgotten. I see someone who has learned to remember herself, to value herself, to celebrate the miracle of still being here. The wrinkles around my eyes have become evidence of laughter shared, tears shed, and countless sunrises I've witnessed. My slower pace has become a meditation, a chance to notice things I rushed past for decades. My quieter voice has become more thoughtful, carrying the weight of experience and the lightness of finally knowing who I am. There's something profoundly liberating that happens when you stop measuring your worth by how busy you are or how desperately others seem to need you. You start discovering the person you were always meant to become once all the external demands and expectations finally quiet down. You realize that this season of life, this time when the world sees you as past your prime, might actually be when you finally come into your own authentic power. The young mother struggling with her toddler doesn't know that the elderly woman behind her has learned secrets about patience and resilience that could transform her parenting. The teenager who avoids eye contact doesn't realize he's ignoring someone who has weathered storms he can't imagine and discovered joys he hasn't dreamed of yet. The businessman who pushes past me has no idea that the slow-moving woman he's dismissing has figured out truths about what really matters. But their oversight doesn't diminish my value anymore. I've stopped needing their recognition or approval to know that I matter. I've stopped waiting for the world to acknowledge my worth and started acknowledging it myself, one loving ritual at a time. If you're walking this path too, the path of silver hair and quieter days, of children who love you but live their own demanding lives, I need you to hear something important. You are not forgotten, even when loneliness makes it feel that way. You are not invisible, even when others seem to look right through you. You are not useless, even when your phone stays silent for days. You are in the sacred season of becoming your truest, most authentic self, stripped of pretense and performance that younger years demanded. This is not the slow descent toward irrelevance that our culture wants you to believe. This is the chapter where you finally get to be completely, unapologetically, beautifully yourself, with all the wisdom and peace that 7 decades of living can bring. These 5 simple habits became my daily prayer, my way of saying yes to life when everything around me suggested I should quietly fade into the background and wait to die. They cost me nothing, but gave me everything I thought I had lost forever. They reminded me that creating a meaningful, beautiful life doesn't require a big stage or a cheering crowd or anyone else's permission. Sometimes it just requires clean sheets arranged with love, a warm cup of tea drunk with mindfulness, morning sunlight received with gratitude, kind words spoken to yourself with conviction, and one small corner of beauty maintained with devotion. Maybe one of these practices will become your anchor too. Maybe it will remind you that your time on this earth is still precious, still purposeful, still worthy of celebration. You don't need someone else's permission to make your life beautiful. You don't need to wait for the world to remember your value before honoring it yourself. You can begin right now with whatever small ritual speaks to your soul, whatever gentle practice helps you remember who you really are. If you've read this far, if these words have touched something true in your heart, I hope you'll let me know which habit calls to you most strongly. Tell me about the small rituals that have saved you in your quiet seasons, the practices that remind you of your worth when the world seems determined to make you feel worthless. Share your story of finding meaning and beauty in the later chapters of life, because someone else needs to hear exactly what you've learned. We may be growing older in a world that often overlooks the wisdom of our years, but we don't have to walk this path alone. Your story matters more than you know. Your wisdom counts for more than society acknowledges. Your presence is a gift to this world, even when that world forgets to unwrap it with deserved reverence. You are not forgotten by the universe that made you. You are simply becoming more real, more essential, more beautifully yourself than you've ever been before. That transformation, that daily choice to honor your life with small acts of love and attention, is worth celebrating every single day you're blessed to draw breath on this beautiful earth we all share. The deeper transformation that unfolded surprised me completely. Beyond the practical benefits, something profound happened to my relationship with time itself. When you're 73 and living alone, time can feel like an enemy or burden. But these rituals taught me that time could become sacred again, that each moment could hold meaning if approached with reverence. The morning light ritual evolved beyond expectations. What started as 2 minutes in my doorway became daily meditation on gratitude. I began noticing things I'd overlooked for decades: shadows moving across my garden, birds preparing for their day, seasonal changes I'd rushed past while raising children. This practice taught me that loneliness and solitude aren't the same thing. Loneliness disconnects you from life itself. Solitude, approached with intention, becomes a doorway to deeper connection. What surprised me most was how these habits changed my interactions with others. When you honor your own life, you show up differently in the world. The young cashier doesn't just see a slow-moving elderly woman anymore. She sees someone with quiet dignity who treats her with genuine kindness. My neighbors have started stopping to chat again because something in my demeanor invites connection. Most importantly, these habits taught me the difference between being alone and being lonely. Before, sitting in my house with no calls or visitors, I felt abandoned. Now, performing these rituals in that same house, I feel connected to myself, to nature outside my window, to thousands of other elderly people discovering their own paths to dignity. If you're feeling skeptical, thinking 5 simple habits couldn't make such dramatic difference, I understand. But consider that transformation doesn't always require dramatic gestures. Sometimes it comes through small choices made consistently over time. Sometimes healing happens through subtraction, removing harsh self-criticism and replacing it with gentle self-compassion. These habits work because they address the deepest human need: to matter, to be seen, to be worthy of care. When the world stops providing recognition, when family becomes too busy and friends pass away, we have a choice. We can wait for external validation that may never come, or learn to provide it ourselves with the same tenderness we once gave others. Your journey may look different. Maybe your ritual will be tending a plant instead of arranging flowers. Maybe gentle stretching instead of standing in light. The specific practices matter less than the intention, treating yourself with deserved love and respect, regardless of who's watching. If you take nothing else from this story, remember this: it's never too late to begin treating yourself with the kindness you've spent a lifetime giving others. It's never too late to create rituals that honor your life and remind you of your worth. It's never too late to choose hope over despair, dignity over defeat, intentional living over simply existing. Your story is still being written. Your purpose is still unfolding. Your value doesn't diminish with age. It deepens, like wine that becomes more complex and precious with time. These 5 habits are just the beginning. Once you remember how to care for yourself with intention and love, you'll discover countless ways to make your life beautiful, meaningful, and worth celebrating every day.